Welcome back to Disturbed Reality. On the 2nd of October 2022, a Grizzly new cartel video was uploaded online. It said that the video was recorded in the state of Chiapas, which borders Guatemala. In recent years, cartel violence has actually been kept to a minimum in the scenic state. The state is more known for its natural beauty, ancient architecture dating back to the Mayans, and its huge production of natural resources. Although cartel presence does exist in the state, levels of violence have been kept low, and it's been that way for several years, though the area has gone through political turmoil in recent decades, particularly in the 1990s when the Mexican army entered the state to battle with the Zapatista Army of National Liberation. Chiapas is home to many indigenous groups who for decades have felt taken advantage of by successive Mexican governments. The Zapatista Army of National Liberation sought to fight economic globalization as well as protecting the natives' Mayan traditions and gaining greater rights and more control over the sacred land. In recent years, the conflict has frozen, but the sentiment of the people remains the same to a certain degree. In regards to cartel presence in the area, it's said that elements of Cartel De Sinaloa, Cartel del Golfo, and CJNG are operating in the state, and potentially an increase in violence may be on the cards. CJNG in particular will see the state as a beneficial territory as it borders Guatemala, where CJNG are growing their presence. Reports have suggested that they work with local Guatemalan traffickers in the country, and some of the drugs are moved through the Guatemala-Mexico border, including through states such as Chiapas. It's also said that the Sinaloa Cartel also have some presence in Guatemala. If one cartel could control a portion of both sides of the border, this would be strategically beneficial for said organisation. The Gulf Cartel's presence in the state remains more of a mystery. In recent years, the Gulf Cartel has dissolved into infighting among various factions, such as Los Ciclones, Los Metros, Los Panteras, and Los Rojos. Although these splinter factions are less influential than major cartels, it has to be said, they are still extremely violent. In fact, because these factions are less influential and have less resources than major cartels, they are more inclined to commit crimes such as extortion and kidnap against the local population. But in 2022, the Golfos are no longer a united cartel, but it is said that some of the remnants of the Gulf Cartel have a working relationship with CJNG, which is believed to have been established in 2019. Before this, the Golfos and Cartel De Sinaloa had a truce after their war, which lasted for 6 years between 2004 and 2010. Since the link-up with CJNG, there have been reports of Cartel del Golfo attacking Sinaloa Cartel convoys. In regards to the video, it has all been confirmed that the victim either belongs to Cartel de Sinaloa or is at least associated with them. However, no concrete proof indicates who the perpetrators are. It is somewhat likely that the video is somehow linked to the ongoing war between CJNG and the Sinaloa Cartel, a conflict that has been going on now for a few years, though it is also possible that a faction of the Gulf Cartel are responsible, potentially even working with CJNG. But nevertheless, what happens in the actual video? The video's duration is around 1.5 minutes long, and the first 55 seconds or so is the interrogation. I have the transcript, which reads the following. The interrogator starts, "What's your name?" The captive responds, "My name is Armando Antonio." The interrogator asks, "Before coming here, where were you?" And the captive responds, "I was in the Tehran neighborhood of Chiapas." The interrogator responds, "How many individuals were there with you?" 20, the captive replies. The interrogator asks, "Who are your bosses?" The victim responds, "Comandante Yahir and El Pulseras." The interrogator replies, "What were you doing when you were detained?" The captive replies, "We were confident once detained because of our deal beforehand with the government." The interrogator nods and asks, "How many individuals were coming this way with you?" And the captive confesses, "We were a caravan of 7 vehicles." The interrogator asks, "Why were you detained?" The captive responds, "We trusted that there wouldn't be any problems with the government because Commander Yahir had spoken beforehand with them." The interrogator asks, "How many dead did you see?" And the captive confesses, 20 individuals. The interrogator then asks the victim to describe El Pulseras. The victim responds, "He's a tall light-skinned man with coloured eyes." And the interrogator then asks him, "What about Commander Yahir?" The captive confesses that Commander Yahir is a police officer. The interrogator closes the interrogation by asking one final question. "What was your job before this?" And the captive replies, "I was a military man." At this point, the execution transpires. While the victim is being executed, the interrogator reads out a final statement. It reads the following. "Alright, let's do this. Look here, you sons of bitches. This goes out to Roberto Yahir Hernandez, you fucking disloyal commander. You're all a gang of kidnapping liars. Keep sending these dumbasses towards us. You sons of bitches, you gang of dogs. This drug corridor already has an owner, you sons of bitches. This is a demonstration so that you dogs can see what your fate will be here." Before we detail the execution, the interrogation does reveal some minor details. It turns out that El Pulseras, one of the bosses named in the interrogation, works for Cartel De Sinaloa, and in particular is a trusted ally of Kingpin Ismael Zambada, aka El Mayo. It's said that Zambada appointed El Pulseras to be in charge of the Chiapas region. Allegedly, he has multiple safe houses in the state and is safeguarded by military personnel and the local police force to essentially operate with impunity. It's said that Ismael Zambada deployed El Pulseras in the area in mid-2021 due to the state's strategic importance for drug trafficking as well as people trafficking. There is also rumours that El Pulseras and his crew run a training centre in the area which focuses on recruiting Guatemalan migrants into the organisation. According to some reports, Cartel De Sinaloa are paying around $100,000 a month to local security personnel to be able to operate in the area. Roberto Yahir Hernandez, who is also mentioned in the interrogation, is the director of the State Border Police. Whether his name being exposed by traffickers forces an investigation remains to be seen. Although many will speculate that CJNG are the likely culprits, I'm not so sure. This execution seemed to be more performative, similar to the old Gulf Cartel and Zeta videos. It's hard to explain, but it just doesn't look or sound like a CJNG video. I wouldn't be surprised if this execution was carried out by a smaller, localized organisation. In fact, the interrogator sounds strikingly similar to an interrogator and murderer who appeared in a couple of old-school Gulf Cartel videos. Maybe it's just a coincidence. But regardless, What happens in the actual video? As mentioned, the first 55 seconds is the interrogation. Following this, the brutality ensues. The video seems to be shot at dusk, and the setting appears to be a rural location. The victim is sitting on the floor and seems to have his hands tied behind his back and is wearing a brown unbuttoned shirt. A spotlight is shining on him. He is surrounded by 8 cartel members, one being the interrogator reading from a notepad and the others being heavily armed with their faces concealed. A man wearing a red cap can be seen standing behind the victim. He is the executioner. A car can also be seen in the background, potentially being the vehicle they used to transport the victim to the location. Once the victim answers the last question, his time is up. The executioner bends down and places a knife under his chin and immediately starts to slice. The victim lets out a muffled guttural scream for a brief second, but it seems that the executioner slices through his vocal cords very quickly. The screaming stops almost immediately. Due to the spotlight, this makes the scene even more graphic. The light reflects off the blood as it pours and almost instantaneously covers the victim's chest. The blood has a fluorescent look, almost like an 80s slasher movie, but this isn't fiction. This is all too real. After slicing the victim's throat for a few seconds, the killer stops as the victim, still sitting on the floor, hangs his head forwards as he bleeds out. The executioner then takes a small hatchet and strikes the victim hard with it on the back of his neck. He drops instantly. As the dying man lays on the floor, he is struck in the neck several more times with the hatchet. Each swing produces a sickening, wet thudding sound. The executioner chops several times until it appears that the decapitation has been completed. It then looks like he bends down to pick the head up, but this is where the video ends. Again, no concrete information points to who the killers are, but if I were to guess, I would say they are a smaller, localized group. I could very well be wrong, however. This video is very recent, so potentially more details will emerge in the coming days. We shall see in the next few weeks and months if violence in the state of Chiapas increases. Fingers crossed, the violence is kept to a minimum. Although I have covered more graphic cartel videos on the channel, this video serves as a reminder that the subject of drug cartels in Mexico is an ongoing story. As we always say, this is happening in real time to real people and is showing no signs of slowing down. But that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it, if you can enjoy this sort of content. As always, thank you guys for the support. If you have any topic recommendations, please feel free to drop me an email. The email will be in the pinned comment, as well as getting in touch on Twitter. That is the best way to contact me. Also, if you will be so kind, please check out my Twitch. The link will be in the pinned comment. But anyway, as always, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.